Hello everyone. In this session, we'll be starting with the fourth chapter of business studies, which is business services. So, there are some topics which is to be discussed in this chapter. These are meaning of business services, nature of services, difference between services and goods, classification of services, types of business services, banking services, meaning and nature, types of banks, functions of commercial banks, insurance, meaning and importance, principles of insurance, difference between insurance and assurance, types of insurance, and types of general insurance. So let's start with the first topic, which is business service. Now, what are business services? Service sector includes commercial firms engaged in banking, communication, transport, insurance, warehousing, etc. In the recent past, the role of service sector in the Indian economy is growing faster than agriculture and industry. So, what are services? Let's understand this with an example. Let's take an example of an economic activity. For example, purchasing ice cream from the store and eating the ice cream in a restaurant, or we can say watching movies in a cinema hall, or purchasing any CDs, DVDs, etc. So when we analyze all these activities, we observe that there is a difference between purchasing and eating, purchasing and watching. Okay, so what is common in all of them? There is one thing common in all of them, that one is purchasing an item and the other one is experiencing the service. So services are basically, it includes all the economic activities which are intangible, and it implies an interaction between the consumer and service provider. So services क्या है? Services वो economic activities हैं जो intangible है. Intangible means which cannot be seen or touched. And also वो एक interaction है service provider और consumers के बीच का. So now we'll discuss some characteristics, features and nature of services. So first characteristic is intangible. Now services are intangible. Intangible means these services cannot be seen or touched. We can only feel the services or one can only experience them. We cannot find out the quality of services before taking it. One can find out the quality of services after experiencing it. So that is why the supplier should provide good quality products to the consumer so that they can demand for the same service after experiencing it. So services क्या हैं? Services intangible होती हैं. Intangible means ना उसको टच किया जा सकता है, ना उसे देखा जा सकता है. तो कंज्यूमर्स उस सर्विस की क्वालिटी का तभी पता कर सकते हैं जब वो उसको एक्सपीरियंस करें. Next is inconsistency. So services have to be performed each time according to the demands and expectation of each customers. Same services may be provided differently by different service providers. For example, service provided by the nationalized bank is completely different from the service provided by the private banks. So inconsistency का मतलब है जो services provide की जा रही हैं वो किसके अकॉर्डिंग होना चाहिए? कस्टमर्स के डिमांड्स एंड एक्सपेक्टेशंस के अकॉर्डिंग होना चाहिए. सो बहुत सारी ऐसी सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स हैं जो सेम सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हैं लेकिन डिफरेंटली प्रोवाइड करते हैं. जैसे नेशनलाइज्ड बैंक की जो सर्विसेज होती हैं वो प्राइवेट बैंक से बहुत डिफरेंट होती है, लेकिन दोनों कौन सी सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर रही हैं? बैंकिंग सर्विसेज, सेम सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर रही हैं. थर्ड इज इन्वेंटरी लॉस. Now, the main feature of services is that services are consumed at the same time when they are produced. So, there is no need to maintain inventory or stock of services. So, here services have to consumed immediately, otherwise it is a loss for the company. For example, a vacant seat in a cinema hall. So, services क्या है? Services उसी समय produce भी होती हैं और उसी समय consume भी हो जानी चाहिए. इसीलिए हमें इन्वेंट्री या स्टॉक मेंटेन करने की जरूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज स्टॉक इंक्लूड्स द गुड्स विच आर टू बी सोल्ड, बट हियर द सर्विसेज आर टू बी कंज्यूम्ड एट द सेम टाइम. सिनेमा हॉल में अगर एक सीट वैकेंट रह जाती है तो वो उस सीट की टिकट का लॉस सर्विस प्रोवाइडर को होता है. सो इट इज एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ इन्वेंट्री. नेक्स्ट फीचर इज Inseparability. So the services cannot be separated from the provider of services. These are produced and consumed at the same place only. For example, we cannot separate the medical services provided by the doctors as the doctor and his services are inseparable. So inseparability क्या होती है? जहाँ पे जो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है और जो वो सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करता है उसको हम सेपरेट नहीं कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो जो डॉक्टर्स होते हैं, we cannot separate the doctor from the services provided by them. Next feature is involvement. Now, involvement means to experience a service, the participation of a customer is essential. For example, if we talk about telephone company, so telephone company provides us the telephone services, but to consume these services, the consumer or the customer has to make or receive the call. So involvement क्या है? जहाँ पे जो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है अगर वो सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है तो कस्टमर को उस सर्विस में पार्टिसिपेशन नेसेसरी होता है. दैट इज इन्वॉल्वमेंट. Now here are some difference between services and goods. So the first basis of difference is intangible. Services are intangible as we have discussed earlier. It cannot be seen or touched, so it is intangible. Whereas goods are tangible. It can be seen or touched. Second is inventory. No requirement to maintain inventory. As we know, services are consumed at the same time when they are produced, but in goods, inventory must be maintained as some goods remain unsold at the end of the year also. Third is inseparable. So services can't be separated from providers, whereas goods can be separated from providers. Fourth is standardization. It is difficult to standardize and maintain quality, but in case of goods, goods can be standardized. Fifth is nature. So, services, it is an activity or processes. Example, watching a movie. Whereas goods, it is a physical object. Example, car, TV, etc. Sixth is type. So, services are heterogeneous, whereas goods are homogeneous. And the seventh point of difference is transfer of ownership. So in services, ownership cannot be transferred, but in goods, ownership can be transferred. So there are some types of services. Services are of three types. First is business services. Second is social service. And third is personal service. So let's discuss the types of services briefly. So it can be classified into three broad categories, that is business services, social services and personal services. So business services means these are the services which are used by the business enterprise for the conduct of their activities. For example, banking, insurance, warehousing, transportation and communication services. These are some examples of business services. So business services क्या होती हैं? वो services जो business enterprises use करती हैं अपनी activities को conduct करने के लिए. Second is social services. So social services are those services that are generally provided voluntarily in pursuit of certain social goals. Now, what can be these social goals? It can be to improve the standard of living of weaker section of society, or to provide educational services to their children, or to provide hygiene or healthy condition in slum areas. So these services are usually provided voluntarily, but for some consideration to cover their cost. For example, the medical services and the healthcare services are provided by non-government organization or any government agencies. So social services के जो services होती हैं उनका aim क्या होता है? जितने भी social goal हैं उनको achieve करना. Social goals क्या हो सकते हैं? Weaker section of society के हेल्थ केयर को ध्यान में रखना, उनके बच्चों को या उनके चिल्ड्रंस को एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करना, हाइजीनिक कंडीशन प्रोवाइड करना, और इस सोशल गोल को पूरा करने के लिए कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हेल्प करती हैं, जैसे एनजीओज हैं या गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज हैं। Now, the last type of service is personal services. So, personal services are those services which are experienced differently by different customers. These services cannot be consistent in nature, they will differ depending upon the service provider. For example, tourism or restaurants are some example of personal services. So in this session, we have learned what are business services, nature of business services, difference between goods and services, and types of services. So in the next session, we'll continue with some more topic. That's all for today. Thank you.